Two things. One, we have Midas on here, Midas the Beast, and he was talking about we was talking about like music creation and stuff like that. And he was like, sometimes I talk amongst my colleagues, and he like, maybe we put out a project that we don't even mix, that we just record and put it out or whatever. And if I know for me hearing it, it was kind of like mind blowing. I'm like, wait a minute, you're not gonna mix the record, but there's an element of that I appreciate, because now I see people who, like you said, I use Logic Pro, or people be like, I record my verse through my phone or whatever, it's all these different things that's going on. And I give credit to, as much as I'm like, like the younger folks with some of the music that they make, I give credit to them. And I think kind of like the Fruity Loops era may have ushered in this wave of creativity where people just, it's great that you have an MPC, you got a Triton, you have whatever it is. Yeah, I just got my laptop, take it out, I'm gonna do this and do that. Like I personally, I don't really care the machines you use to make the beat. Is the beat fire? It's what's important to me, and there are people who are purists that they like, well, what equipment did you use? So my next question to you would be, in order to be considered a producer, do you actually have to touch the keys or the pads?
No. I mean, look at Madlib. Madlib makes projects on his iPad, He made what project did he make? I think he made that Freddie Gibbs Pinata or Bandana, one of them. And he made another project, and he just makes them on his iPad. He'd be sitting on a train or on a plane just making beats. So I don't think so. I mean, that's like saying you can't produce because you play the guitar, or you're not a producer because you play just the piano. Everything is kind of an instrument in a way. It's just your specialty and your beat. It's mostly about expression and originality of expression. And I mean, if you could get a mic and produce by just tapping on things on a bucket, on a wall, what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see dudes doing it. What about the person who don't touch a machine or anything? They just be like, yo, I want you to sample that, loop that, put a drum there, play a bass there. Like, is that person considered a producer?
Well, that kind of goes back to what you mentioned Dre before. Like, Dre is kind of, to me, is like a hybrid between like a beat maker and a Puffy. Puffy's the guy who kind of curates sounds and artists with sounds. Like, okay, I'm going to put you with this producer. I'm going to put you with this sound. Let's do this for that. So he kind of distills everything and refines it to make a project. And Dre is kind of that way. I mean, Scott Storch got a lot of credit for like the keys on a lot of Dre's hits. So, it's to me, that's a talent, and that's the Quincy Jones method, more or less. I call it. So, they'll take players from all these other groups and they'll put them together to make this sound. So that's an art form. It's all an art form, and it's all a talent. It's just which lane works for you. I mean, even there's controversy with Rick Rubin, because Rick Rubin is like a curator. He doesn't really produce officially. Again, he just puts people together, right? And he get a lot, like, he was so known for so long, like, oh, he was part of Tila Rock, and It's Yours, like the original, he was part of all these big, all the Beastie Boys stuff, but he was just a curator for sounds, and that's it. And he admits that. And to me, that's a talent in and of itself. If you do that and you do that well, I'm not, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, I don't have to like your sound in particular if people like it, then they like it. It's dope,
Yeah, I've seen the opposite of that. We've had people come on and talk to us about Marley Marl production. I've heard Big Daddy Kane say it. We had Master Ace, I think he said it, that people would come to his house with the records that they actually wanted sampled, and Marley would take all the production credits, despite the fact that they came up with the ideas, because he actually played the machines.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, that's 100%. I've done that before, where like I bring records to somebody, and I'm not saying no names, and they just make the beat, and I just don't, and I'm just a rapper at that point, it is what it is, I look, I don't have to have it all. I don't have to have all the credit, man. Just whatever, man. But ultimately, that leads me to want to produce myself. Like I've been in the studio with so many people, from Marco to Ayatollah to Skiz to you know what I'm saying, to Thelonious Martin. I've been in the studio and I see all of their methods of production, and they all are a little bit different. Like I know how they do what they do, and that kind of changed the rules for me it allowed me like, oh, I said, oh, it's not just one way of producing. He's doing it like that. He's doing it like that. And that opened up everything for me to be able to do things the way I want, man. Just like, like I know Large Pro was known for never quantizing, but even back in the day, Thelonious Martin, when I was working with him for Molotov, I noticed he didn't really quantize. Everything was by feel, and again, it was like, it was off, but it was off in the right way,
Yeah, cool project too with Molotov. I like that project.
Thank you. Yeah.
I like that song. So what inspires you most to write a song or write your song?
Man, my inner angst, my wellspring of hostility. Like, I don't go to a therapist. I rap instead. Like, I save on therapy bills. I don't. It's really like, I learned to rap what I feel. Like, the things I rap about. Like, I rap about everything from my family to my work to making money to economics to political affairs to social issues. And I run the gamut of like what I think. I don't really try to take into account what other people think. It's really like you're sitting in on a therapy session. You know what I'm saying? Of my mind. Like, it's a real peek into who I am.
That's good.
And a lot of it is spiritual based. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, pardon me for interrupting, but I said it sounds like an outlet for you.
It's definitely an outlet. Definitely. Like, and the more like I get better at it, I get better at expressing myself. And there's a way to do it where you just don't express yourself for the sake of expressing yourself. You want to do it in a creative way, in a witty way. It's got to be playful. It can't be preachy. If you have like, even when I talk about political, or if I talk about things that are violence based, if I talk about guns, I talk about it, I reference it as my right as a man to protect myself and my right as a man to protect my family. Like, the difference between violence and force. Like, I'm willing to use force, but I'd never use violence against anybody, because that's a violation of somebody's rights. But I will use force in protection of my own.
Copy. I got you.
So when people hear me talk about things like that, like I will say the word bitch and I will talk about guns, but I talk about it in a way that's not in like that traditional way of like, it's not bravado. It's sort of me talking about the psychological or our social situation, like how we talk to each other, how we view each other. I'm part of it. I could kind of, we can't shelter ourselves from it. So we need to be able to express ourselves without being uninhibited, Like, I used to inhibit myself a little bit because I didn't want to curse so much, or I didn't want to say bitch, and I didn't want to talk about certain things, even though I might have felt the way. But I stopped inhibiting my thoughts and my creativity and stopped giving a shit what people thought. And if people wanted to say something, if I'm saying it from where my point of view, then that's just what it is,
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like that's content that you want to incorporate, or that you incorporate, but not from a low-hanging fruit perspective. Because we've heard clever wordplay around stuff, and we've heard people just go, like you said, just bitch, shit, this, that, or whatever. Like it you have to have some sort of wordplay, when you're introducing it, or if not, you just demonstrated that you have a limited vocabulary.
Yeah, there's got to be a point to what you're doing, and besides like getting people to shake their asses. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, or just cursing the curse.
Yeah. And listening to you, you I can tell that you understand a lot of like how the music, and let's just have a way about how you feel about things, and you're really connected to the music itself. When you go in there with the different producers and different things like that, have you ever encountered a time where it felt like you just didn't think this person was in sync with you?
Yeah, 100%. That's happened multiple times.
Okay.
I haven't put out projects because of that. Like, I've worked on whole projects, and I felt like there was no cohesion. It didn't click, and I just kind of didn't. And I won't. For me, I just can't put something out just because I did it. I gotta really believe in it, and I gotta feel it, and I gotta feel like we were in sync. I could be cool with people too. Like, you could be my man, and we could work on something. And if it doesn't click, it's just, I will I won't put it out. It doesn't click, you know.
Mhm.
Let me ask you this, Saga. Are you in the studio with these people, or are you emailing?
No, I've been in the studio with them. Me and Knots had a project. Me and Knots had like a 7-song EP. And I love Knots. Knots is incredible. He's an incredible producer.
Yeah, you gave him his
I
props.
just felt like things didn't come together. Like I like him as a person. We were cool and everything. We even had a dope time in the studio. But I just felt like things didn't like it wasn't where I wanted it to be in the end. So I just never put it out, you know. And then I had that problem with another person who I'm super cool with. I won't mention, you know, because we talk every day still. But I had a problem with that project and I didn't put it out. Like I'll use a single from here and there and drop it as a Lucy, but I could never put the project out, you know?
It's interesting you say that, because I think sometimes like fans here, they'll be like, I want a whole album with Nas and Primo, or I want a whole album with this person. And then you hear the artist be like, well, it's got to be the right time. It's got to make sense, you know. But from a fan standpoint, fans are like, well, you've done music before in the past. I've enjoyed it. But that doesn't mean that you, in terms of creativity, that you're in the same space as that person during that time, you know.
Yeah.
And listening to your music, what I see is that there's definitely a thought process, you know, around it. And the other thing, you know, that I would ask you in that vein is also is like, so from that perspective, it seems like that you got an understanding as an artist that there's more than just the element of creating. And what I mean by that is that, you know, like I've seen artists that the only thing they worried about is just recording their verse or producing their beat. You know, they don't understand the other things that go into it. Like earlier, you was talking about like, all right, so, you know, there's really no huge marketing ploy anymore. So, you know, you flood the market, or you do this or you do that. How long did it take you as an artist to develop to a point where you began to see beyond just the creative process?
That's a tough one, man, because I still struggle with that. Honestly, man, I love the creative process. The rest of it, like, I wish like I had like a machine or somebody to handle that, like the whole social media stuff and you know, like I wish like I could if I could sit in the studio all day every day, like that's the best part. And the next best part is when it kind of gets out there and people enjoy it, you know, and you get feedback. That's the next level. But everything from between making it and releasing it is like that's like work. It takes away from the creative process, but that becomes a talent in and of itself. It's not an art form. It's a talent, and it's understanding how to use technology and understanding the it's tricky, man, because they even change the technology on you. Like they change how these platforms work. One day they work one way, and that was working. Then all of a sudden it stops working that way. You got to do something else. Like posts are no longer good. Now you got to do reels. Then you got to do stories. Then you got to make stories that turn into reels. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But
Like,
even the other element of it, like there are artists that create and they don't even understand like the publishing aspect of it. They'll be like, I don't, whatever. You know, they have no concern about anything other than just saying like, hey, I've created this. And I feel like that the business has come from a standpoint, like we've all heard these cautionary tales about how people haven't made money off of music, or they've got jerked, or they haven't had ownership off of their art that they worked hard on creating. But I feel like there's still like kind of this pitfall a lot of time around the creative element of it, that people get so engulfed in creating that they like, yeah, I just want to create. I'm not worried about that stuff. And then sadly, we find like on the other end of it, you know, after their music is monetized or their art is monetized and somebody else has reaped the benefits, then people are working backwards to educate themselves on these other elements of what goes into this. You know, so so with that being said, like what do we need to do, or how do we shift artists from beyond just the creative element of saying like, yeah, I just want to write verses or make beats all day, and to start actually thinking about this other stuff? All right, what about, you know, your publishing, you know, who's licensing your records? Or, you know, do you need to be a manager? Do you need a manager? You know, do you need a booking agent? Do you need this? Do you need that? Like, how do we get people to start thinking about those things?
I think what has to happen is we're in a super voyeuristic society where people just don't want to appreciate your music. They need to know it's got to be accompanied with lifestyle things. So your lifestyle, like things that you do have to be interesting. And then basically they're watching you live your life to your own music. It's like, it's crazy. It's absolutely insane. So, but what I think what has to happen is you have to get so much like leverage because your fan base is so big that things just start happening. You know what I'm saying? People start working for you. That's just how it is. Like it's bandwagon. It's bandwagoning. You know, like 1 minute, like nobody supports you, and then when 10,000 people support you, the other 5,000 that weren't supporting you that then all of a sudden they jump on. They bandwagon. And then all of a sudden you got 20,000. And then if you got like 50,000, then all of a sudden people want to shoot videos for you and they want to do marketing for you. And then like everybody wants to be associated with something that's moving up rapidly, you know? So the key really for artists is to get themselves to a position where they're growing so quickly and everybody notices it, that everybody wants to be on top, part of it. And you get to cherry pick who the hell you're gonna, you know what I'm saying? No, fuck you. I remember you from back then. You said that, you did that. You know, I like you. You can work with me. You know, like you. Then you get to cherry pick which jerk off you're gonna work with.
Yeah, isn't it interesting though that if you think about now, like you said, like the whole lifestyle piece, like we have so much accessibility to people, like whoever our favorite artist is. Now, like I remember back in the days, you know, once a month I would pick up the Source or even like a Rap Pages or Word Up, and you read an article about Big Daddy Kane. But now you can go on Instagram and see Big Daddy Kane in his basement working on his plumbing. Or
Isn't Sadat X working in a hospital every time you see his video?
Yeah. It's like it's really humanized the relationship, but there was kind of air of mystery that I appreciated back then. And I'm like, you know, once a month I get to find out what this particular artist is doing. But now every day you can just scroll Instagram. You be like, well,
you went to the store
such and such going to work today.
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing is, you have to be almost like you have to be outrovert. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm naturally an introvert, and as I got older, I became more extrovert. And but some people really lean into the extrovert stuff. I'm not fully comfortable. I could show 1,000 things that I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? Like but I'm not fully comfortable with like. I just drove down to Florida yesterday. Like I just came in this morning. I've been on the road for 24 hours, you know? So
that's because you got boundaries, Saga.
I do interesting things, I guess, but I don't think other people will find them interesting. They're interesting to me. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not narcissistic enough to think that everybody wants to see exactly the nonsense that I'm doing every day, you know?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Hey,
go ahead, Rob. Yeah, go ahead, Rob. Go ahead.
Can you name a particular song? I know you mentioned Rakim earlier being a very huge interest, but name a particular song or album that changed your perspective and really grabbed you. So you know what, I'm gonna do this hip hop.
Illmatic. Illmatic is. I'm sorry.
That whole entire album.
Yeah, that album like changed. Was a game changer. I think it was a game changer for a lot of like rappers, you know, like that made me like, because it was multiple producers. It was just like, he was comfortable being real poetic, but street at the same time. It had so many elements in it together. Like it was cool street. It wasn't like rah rah, and it wasn't, you know, and it lends itself to like, maybe it lends itself. His cadence, his attitude, it lends itself, I think, to like my personality. You know, like I'm kind of that. I'm kind of like a laid back person. I'm not a rah rah person. So and to me, like living in New York, that embodies New York. It's literally like you can smell. You know, like New York has a smell when it rains. It has a feel. You know what I'm saying? Like just I don't know what it is, but you know, there's a feel. The sounds of Illmatic are literally the sounds of New York to me. Like they embody the sound of New York.
Right. Always cool, but under fire. Always cool under fire.
I remember
always ready.
Hearing Illmatic before it came out, and growing up in New York and just being like, damn, like it's like this dude just took like the soundtrack to everybody in the hood life and put it like you listen to it. It was just so vivid, like, you know, cinematic. and there's another internal debate that we have amongst and sometimes guests join in too. Like we had DJ Doo-Wop on here, we had Baby Paul on here also, and there's like an ongoing debate around what's the greater album, Illmatic or It Was Written. You see on my shoulder, Illmatic. I'm an Illmatic guy. I'm gonna stick with Illmatic as the greatest hip hop album of all time. But there's a huge growing following around that It Was Written was a better album.
I think it depends on what side of 35 you're on. Like if you're under 35, I think, or even maybe even like under 40, I think It Was Written is the album. But if you're over, Illmatic was the album, because Illmatic is the prototype that changed everything. For me, It Was Written. It was more refined lyrically. I think he was more directional. Like he knew, like, he was more storytelling. I think he kind of took the Slick Rick formula and he applied it to his style. So now he's telling more stories. But for me, I like abstractions. I like poetry. You know, like I like when people are saying things that they're not necessarily saying, and I got to think about it. Like I don't need to hear, like I like poetry. So I think Illmatic is more poetic, and I think the production, like I'm not a fan, and this might be controversial too, but I'm not a fan of Trackmasters in general. Like I don't like their sound. I don't like Dre with Nas. Like I like Large Professor with Nas. I like Havoc with Nas. I like Pete Rock with Nas. LES. I like those sounds, like because they are New York, you know.
Yeah, that's the fierce in you. Yeah. That I think that It Was Written, to me, it was a great album, and I think that he was definitely a more refined songwriter. But as far as lyricism, I'm always gonna go with Illmatic every day. You know, the one thing though, I feel that Illmatic is single-handedly responsible for, that to me is like it's kind of like a con. Like I felt like when Illmatic came along, it kind of shifted the formula, right? Because it was right on that cusp in 1994 where it was still a lot of fun in music, you know, and it was such diversity, and then everybody saw the formula from Illmatic and was like, holy shit, this is a great piece of art. And then everything kind of became like street-based type records, you know, like there was still like the one-offs. We still had people that was partying and, you know, and making fun records and everything, but the trajectory of hip-hop as a result of the influence of that album, it was a lot more like people trying to make street-oriented type of records. And now I'm starting to see like some more of like the fun come a little bit back into the music, which honestly I appreciate. I appreciated like the early 90s stuff, like Leaders of the New and stuff like that. Like it just gave us such a variety of different music to choose from, you know. And I don't know if you've seen like recently, was it Billboard or was it Forbes that dubbed Illmatic the greatest hip hop album of all time?
Yeah. You know, that's what I'm saying. Like, didn't Illmatic? It was like being taught in like college courses, or it had gotten all these like accolades from, something like that, Smithsonian. I'm just saying, like, I think the really like intellectual, smart people who are more metaphoric minded like Illmatic better, and I think the people who are more literal like It Was Written, because It Was Written is more literal. That was a backhanded compliment. That was a slight.
He said, name a rapper that I ain't influenced, man. He was on.
That's definitely
100%. 100%. It was his style on Illmatic basically changed the genre entirely. It changed it.
Yeah, it definitely did, and you know, I credit him with it. Like I said, I'm like, damn, this dude captured everything that we growing up going through or whatever. The next thing you know, every album, even with like the Wu-Tang type stuff, you start seeing like the influence there. And you know, of course, you heard like some of the influence from the Biggie stuff, like all brilliant artists, but you could all tell like there was some inspiration from Nas. And I remember back then at the time, like, yo, he was being held like the savior of rap, like the golden child, the second coming after Rakim. And ironically, like Rakim was doing like street lyrics and everything, but I don't think Rakim ever caught on to the magnitude of Nas. Like I remember like they was like really just pushing Nas like the Source and everybody. And he didn't sell any records really out the gate. You know, but it was just critically acclaimed. Like he probably went triple platinum in the hood the first day, or even before it came out. Everybody had the tape and knew all the records. I remember I was underage, going to the Fever and seeing him perform those records And I'm like, yo, how could people even? I'm thinking I'm the only one who got the tape, but
Nah,
everybody
you
else
still-
Everybody got the tape.
knew
Nah,
all the records too, or whatever. Like, Jesus Christ, like
I think it's always like that with art, though. I think if you even take like television shows or you take anything, when it's done on another level, it's like the audience isn't ready for it yet. Like it hasn't, the public, the masses haven't quite caught up to that. They're just behind. They're still on that other thing. And then it's slowly like they catch up. But there's like an elite people with that refined ear who might have that spit, like the tastemakers who pick up on it first, and it gets the accolades and it gets the respect and appreciation amongst a small group, but it doesn't really get that mass. I think that's what will happen with Illmatic. I think as far as industry people, hip hop heads, people who are really like in the industry and appreciated the music on a deeper level, loved Illmatic, but it hadn't quite caught up on a national level or a global level to like the population. They were still maybe on some like, you know, whatever the prior incarnation of hip hop was. And like you said, Rakim, Nas kind of is the Rakim, G-Rap, and Kane are kind of the prototype for the Nas of the world. You know, he took everything and formulated and distilled it and made it into his own sound and refined it over those type of beats. Because G-Rap prior to that was dope.
Yeah,
but I just don't think people might get mad at this. I just don't think his production matched his level of lyricism.
Sometimes
You know,
I agree with that. But those four rappers, though, it's funny you say those four rappers. Those four rappers at that time, that was so unforeseen to any other. They rhymed so well in pocket, on pocket, and rode the rhythm of whatever song you heard from them. And it made you want to listen and pay attention. I remember listening to Let the Rhythm Hit Him and Untouchable.
Follow the Leader.
Oh my
Follow
God.
the Leader, Microphone Fiend. Yeah.
Just
my melody.
and you still rock and you still like, you still hear it. The cadence, everything is clear. And
a lot of that production, Rakim early stuff was Rakim, Molly Moore. Large Pro was, I think, working with had some G-Rap. Paul C was involved in a lot of that stuff. So they had, I guess, you know, I could see that. I definitely think that he was sort of like a combination of all three of them. It also put him in his career in a position where, you know, it's like you start with that. Where do you go from there? Right?
you gotta stop that shit.
You got every album you put out, got to live up to that. Like, where do you go from there after you create that?
Well, I had heard a Tragedy Gaddafi interview where he meant, and this is something that I kind of knew by ear, by listening to it, because I feel like Illmatic, it's Nas and the production team. So it's Nas is like the kid, and then you have Q-Tip sort of curating the team, right? And then you got P-Rock, Large Pro, and these producers. So it's Nas plus it's these guys plus Nas. On It Was Written, it's Nas. Really, he's like, he took it, he became sort of like the headliner on the next project, you know what I'm saying? And then what happened from there on, Nas, and Tragedy said this in an interview, and I kind of thought this myself, but he kind of validated it, my own thought. But he said that Nas picks beats that are below his pay grade. Like, he doesn't want the beat to outshine him. He wants to outshine the beat all the time. So he doesn't pick anything that might compete with him. You know what I'm saying? Like, and to me, it always kind of sounded like that after it was written. It always felt like Nas was on another level lyrically, but his beats selection never quite. And he's always had. It's not like a mystery. Like, people talk about that for years. Like, Nas doesn't pick the best beats, you know. But Tragedy was saying it's kind of on purpose. He doesn't pick, like, you could give him ill beats and he'll pick the ones that are like more simple, that might be like some keys or Uchiwali, like what?
There's a lot. One of my least favorite producers to hear Nas with. Great producer, but I'm not really a fan of like a lot of their work together. Is Nas and Salam Remy. Like, I just don't. I don't like
Cherry Wine. You don't like Cherry Wine?
I like Cherry Wine, that may be one of my favorite ones from Salam Remy, but a lot of the Salam Remy stuff to me, like even the Thief's theme beat or whatever, like I was cool with it, but it's not like when you hear the zone outs and records like that, like it's just not good music to me, you know. And those are records that I feel like, almost to speak to what you're saying, like those are records that Nas made, records that were listenable to you because, you know, you like Nas music or you like his lyricism. But Salam Remy to me has done better work with like the Fugees than honestly with the Nas.
Yeah.
I like Nas with Large Pro. I like Nas with, I would like to see Nas with Alchemist on a full project. I could
That'd be
do
crazy.
Nas with Hit Boy. It's been wonderful, but now it's overdone. I don't need to hear any more of that. You know, so yeah, I could agree with that. And by the way, Tragedy, we had him on here. Tragedy to me is an underrated lyricist. I like Tragedy
100%.
rap, and I like a lot of the projects that Tragedy has put out also. Has direct to consumer distribution helped or hindered the quality of music that's in the market?
Both.
Okay.
I mean, in some aspects, it's the quality. You're getting good quality music, but it hindered it because you don't know where to get it all the time. You know, like it's out there. It's just you don't know. Like there's so much of it. Like you hear these DJs now, they're getting like 100 albums a week. You know what I'm saying? Like these dudes are the unsung heroes right now. The amount of music that they get across their email is insane. You know, it's not, and it wasn't like that before. They might have got like 10 records in a month. You know, and then it became 100 records in a month. Now they're getting like 1,000 in a month. You know, how are you gonna process? How a DJ is gonna process that? So, I think it does both. I think for people who might not have had a voice, it helps them. You know. And it helps people who express themselves who wouldn't have an opportunity before. They might have gave up and just went to their job because they were just kind of like beating a dead horse at that point, or you know, they were falling on deaf ears. And then on the other hand, and you know, and at the same time, I think it made the vets have to step up because there was a lot more production out there, and they had now you have these young hungry cats come out. Because I know, like, I've been rapping for a while, and I hear some younger cats come in, and I even rap with them. I put them on my albums, like the Kid Mac Montana. I put them. These dudes are hungry. I put them on projects because they're young and they're hungry, and they make me want to like hustle more. You know what I'm saying? They keep me fresh.
Right. That's dope.
What about the people that aren't good? Are you fearful that anybody with a microphone and an enter button and Astro the distro kid?
Like, yeah, I don't know if you remember, but like back in the day when we used to have ciphers, like in school or on the corner, we'd have like the 4 or 5 elite out of us. And then there'd be one dude who was always like kind of the wild loose cannon. Like he was kind of like the ODB of the clique, but he was like not good. You know what I'm saying? And we would all rap and we take our turns, and then we pull him in from the wings with his 40, and he would just come in and spit a couple of real basic bars, and we'd all wild out on it. You know what I'm saying? Like we'd all like egg him on and cheer him on. Like, yo, we'd all wild out. So like. Those guys did start to get highlight. You know what I'm saying? All of a sudden, they were like, there are rappers out there who are like them. You know what I'm saying? Who are not good, but at the same time, if there are people who are leaning like to that taste, that's what they want to hear. Let them hear it. You know what I'm saying? Like let them. Like,
yeah.
I don't want to stop anybody from hearing what they should hear.
I do like the fact that people have an opportunity to kind of live out their dream if it's their dream. And I think anytime you put any kind of art into the ethos, you have to be comfortable with whatever critique comes with it. So from the standpoint of people having an opportunity to live out their dream and have it out there, like I'm very much pro of it. The thing that makes it difficult though is that when the market is so saturated. And we were talking earlier about like the consumption of music or whatever. Like if I'm being inundated with 50 projects, and it's like to kind of be able to go through all of that. Like it takes me a lot longer now to get through an album or to get to an album that I like than it did in the past because there was almost a built-in filter that was like, hold on, nah, this ain't making it out. Like I can accept a project from somebody, and it's not the best project, we all have favorites, but there are some things that it's like, this should have never seen the light of day, whether you established
Yeah.
or not. So that's the part that I struggle with. That distro kid don't have a thing that be like, nah, this is too whack. It can't get into the universe type thing. So
Yeah, well, I mean, at one point you had the record labels curating the sounds, right? Like, so they were selecting what got out there, and that kind of built the whole industry, right? Being by A&Rs curating sounds, artists. And then we had that other layer where, like, where you had the independent record labels who were curating on another level of more distinct sounds, like the Rockstars, going back to them, and then now it's the Wild West, and it's like you said, there's some things that shouldn't see the light of day, because basically what happened is you wound up having clones of clones of clones of clones, and now we're so watered down that you're getting just these really either there's a twofold problem. You're getting things that are just either complete trash, or you don't know who's, they sound like the last 10 other artists that you listen to.
Yeah.
Like everything sounds the same. And I think that becomes a problem, because if you didn't formulate your sound in your own world, right? I formulated my sound in my own world pre-internet, basically, in with my team and my people in my neighborhood, and I formulated the sound, so I have a distinct sound, and then you're influenced by who you're influenced by, as far as like mainstream or a larger artist, whether it was Nas or Kool G Rap or whatever, you're influenced by them as well, but you still know how to formulate your sound. And I think now people are like cloning the clones, and we're at that level of like, just I can't tell what's what sometimes myself. Like, it's vertigo in a way, it's musical vertigo.
Yeah, with the attention span shortening also, and like we said earlier, music being more disposable. Why a double album now? And if so, with putting out that double album, did you consider like the disposable part in terms of strategic, saying, "I volume 1 will be now, and then volume 2 will be," knowing that people will be like, "Yo, volume 1 is dope. It's next Wednesday. Where's volume 2 at? Or I need new music by Saga."
Yeah, I think it's like kind of approaching the formula a little bit differently. I'm trying to do two things at once. So one is I'm trying to put out a lot of music. The other thing is I'm trying to create anticipation between projects. If this was this good, let's see how good. Now there's an anticipation of comparison between volume 1 and volume 2. Can the freshman will the freshman beat the sophomore? Or will the sophomore beat the freshman? You know what I'm saying? Like what's gonna? So I think it creates a certain level of anticipation, on top of the fact that I just kept making music, and it kept getting like, and everything was like working. So I had 21 songs. I could have put it out in one long LP of 21 songs, but who's going to listen to that? I know I'm not going to listen to anything that's 21 songs. So like you said, going back to attention spans, it doesn't make sense. Like, I don't have that attention span. And I even noticed like we used to be able to listen to 3 verses. Now we're listening to 2 verses. We're still basically doing 2 verses, but I'll do 1 verse here or there. I'll change the formula up. You got to keep people on edge a little bit, So I just think it creates anticipation. It's a lot of music to dump at once. So let me spread it out. On top of it, I have another project that's going to come out after that, like in like a month. Another EP.
So I just want, just to go back real quick, where guys are talking about, distro kid and people just gauging the quality of the music. I think some of the stuff is so bad now, quality of lyrics aside, the sound quality of some of the junk that's put out now sounds terrible, where it's not even aesthetically good that you even want to hear it. That's how bad it is. But I got another question for you, because you're putting out projects and different things, and you like you said, there's different lanes for everything. How do you define success when you put out a project? Like what
Great question.
what do you say is a successful project for you?
Oh man, it's really hard to tell right now, man. It's like it's not like there's no immediate success right now. Like there's like it's like a drawn out success. Like you're watching it build momentum, and then the next project feeds the next project, and then the next one feeds the next one, and you just want to keep like, it's like if you're in a boat and you got an oar, you're paddling, right? Every time you stop, the boat stops moving. So you got to keep paddling to get speed and get momentum, and it's like you got to keep releasing music. So success is like, if I have to measure success in like months, like 3 months, 6 months, 8 months. That's how I measure success. Like, songs, some of my songs won't take off for like all of a sudden it gets a hit. Somebody finds it and it gets on a playlist, and now all of a sudden I have like thousands of views on or listens on this
Yeah.
particular
Right.
song. You know, some of my songs have 80,000, 200,000. You know, depends. Um, and it, you know, but and again, I can't measure success through social media because they keep changing the algorithms and the way they work. So when I would get like 2,000 views, plays before, I'm now getting 100 and something. Like they completely like there's no way to really measure anything anymore. So at this point, I just make good music and I throw it out there, and I hope people like you find it and
Yeah.
enjoy it, you know. And then I get feedback. So I measure success by positive feedback from people. Because people don't, man, I don't know, like there's no, people are not buying music like that, you know.
Yeah.
They're buying merch, right? So they buy vinyl because vinyl is merch. They don't
Mhm.
play vinyl, they stick vinyl up on the shelf, you know what I'm saying? They might play it once, take it out of package, but it's
Yeah.
not like, you know, most of the time people are playing things on their phone, you know, like in their earbuds. So
Mhm.
it's not the same, you know. It's like, so, you know, if you're going to get it, if you're going to measure, if the metric is finance, then it's got to be merch based. Um, and other than that, like I just want DJs to play it. I want people to hear it, and I want some, you know, feedback is always good. So
Mhm.
that's all. That's all I really want.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a definitely a dope metric. Yeah, Rob.
I'm good, bro.
Yo, what inspired your track I Want?
I wanted what I was saying. What do you mean, as far as subject matter or
Yeah.
style?
Yeah, as far as subject matter.
Because these are things like what inspired me is just my kind of political view on things. You know, like I really, you know, we all want peace, right? So it's always safe to say I want world peace. Give me a piece of mind, a piece of the pie. You know what I'm saying? Like those are the things that I literally want. When you hear them, like I do want peace, because without peace you don't have success. You know, you know, I want a peace of mind, which is my peace. So I want world peace. Then I want a peace of mind. Then I want a piece of the pie. You know, so I want to be able to be successful. You know, for myself and for my family, and you know, and then I want, you know, so it's basically just that inspired my own wants for the world, and I wanted to keep it simple. So I didn't want to. I wanted to keep repeating I wanted, so that people were really clear on exactly, this is what I want. Let me remind you, this is what I want. So I keep reminding you that this specific line is what I want, you know? And I want the ability, like, I want the ability to be able to like protect myself, protect my family. I want the ability to be able to um, be financially secure. You know what I'm saying? I want the ability to be able to walk the street. Like if you're from New York back in the day, you understand. Like you couldn't go to neighborhoods sometimes. You couldn't ride trains without your voice. You know,
Yeah.
without people. Like there was a certain level of freedom you didn't have. You know, so when you don't have freedom and then you have it, you want to maintain that. You know,
Mhm.
so and you want safety for, like, you know, my sister could ride the train, my mother could ride the train, my girlfriend could ride the train. I don't have to worry about that, you know. So I measure like the things that I want by like my own value system.
Mm.
It's
Yeah.
it sounds like a song that you're taking action and wanting something to materialize.
Yeah, it's a manifestation. You know, it's a if you put the words out in the world and you put it into people's ears, then, you know,
That's
maybe people think, you know, we all sort of start manifesting that idea, because it's like anything else. It's like propaganda can be negative or it can be positive. If the propaganda is meant to make you do something positive and beneficial to you and the world, then it's, why not? You know what I'm saying? Like, as opposed to the destructive force of it, it's the creative force.
Yeah. Is it true that you're a vegan?
No, I used to be.
Used to be a vegan? All right. So
About
what made you decide to become a vegan, and why'd you say I no longer want to be a vegan?
back in the day, I said I was actually more like doing a scientific test on myself. I was experimenting. I said, what would happen if I stopped eating meat for a week? And I just wanted to see how it felt, right? And then I said, nothing happened. because at that point you're almost like, will I die? You know what I'm saying? Like you're so ignorant at that point, you have no idea what's going to happen. So then I did it for 2 weeks. Then I did it for a month, and I actually felt pretty good. You know what I'm saying? So I kept doing it. I cut out all dairy, and I just kept experimenting on myself. And at that point, it just rolled. I felt better. I felt lighter. Um, I was training harder. It just benefited me in so many ways, physically and psychologically, that it just made sense to maintain that track and see how far it could take me. And the more I did it, it just became a way of life, and it became easy. It's not something that I really had to put effort into. It was like just nature. I felt like it was my nature, and then it kind of like went from experiment to becoming my ethical system, right? Like I didn't want to hurt animals. I like animals, and I said to myself, if I can't break the chicken's neck myself, I don't want to eat it. You know what I'm saying? Like if I can't hunt something, I don't want to kill it. Like I don't want to eat it then. So I felt like it was kind of an ethical value system that I had. So I did that for like a long time, and I did it for like 20 years, and I was a vegan.
That's good. That's good. And what made you say, all right, I'm no longer a vegan? Like what?
It stopped working, man. I don't know what it was, man. It just stopped. It wasn't beneficial physically, psychologically, and I needed more of something, and that thing started to be fish. So I started to eat like cold water fish, like the omega-3 fish, like salmon, halibut, cod. And then that turned into me eating eggs, and then that turned into me eating dairy, and then that turned into me eating poultry. So it's that slippery slope of once you start doing something, things, and it's being in tune with what works for you and what doesn't at what particular point in life you are.
Right.
Yeah. Because I was wondering, when I saw that, I was like, like what were the effects spiritually, like and with like even psychologically, like how did you feel different as a result of becoming a vegan?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because something happened to me after a few years of being a vegan where like I almost equated to a few things, right? So when we eat animals, we're eating their adrenaline and their cortisol and their fear and their, you know what I'm saying? We're consuming their energy, like whatever's imbued in that meat. We're now eating that, and it's becoming imbued in us, it's becoming part of us. So whatever their life cycle was, if it was torturous or they died, or, like they were frightened, now we're consuming that and it's becoming part of us. So when you subtract that from your life, things calm down a little bit. Like you don't go into the fight or flight as much. At least that was my experience. And then when you're eating more of the plant-based, especially raw, a lot more juices, a lot more vegetables, you're getting more of a pure, direct, non-contaminated, non-affected energy source. And then it's more of a clear path through your system. And I would have these like spiritual like encounters and situations that I remember one day I was driving the whip, and I'm just minding my business. I was out on Long Island, actually. I was driving in Long Island, and I got hit in the head, man, what felt like a beam of energy, man. I didn't even know what to call it. So my reference is my family's like Roman Catholic growing up. So I just called it like the Holy Spirit hit me. And I felt this energy, bro, like I could disintegrate into a billion particles. Like I was one with everything for like a few seconds. Like Buddhists might call it nirvana or whatever it was, but I had this like experience for, I don't even know how long it lasted, but I was at like inner peace, like I had never felt, I never experienced, and I couldn't have imagined. So that experience, and then I also had experiences with like, and it's gonna sound crazy, but like what I call spiritual technology, being able to read people's thoughts, So I had this buddy of mine next to me, and he got on a cell phone and he was talking to somebody. I didn't know who he was talking to. And I just randomly turned to him. I said, tell Sarah I said hello. He goes, how do you know I'm talking to Sarah? I said, I don't. But what I kind of assumed, hypothesized, I picked up on was his own thought. So my theory on it is like, I just no way to prove it. You know what I'm saying? Like what happens is we're so burdened by the things in our life, like our stressors, the things we consume, food, our weight, everything. We're so burdened by it that we lose the technology that we might have had before, like of being able to like be more empathetic, or more like being able to feel people's emotions, or even like communicate over distances, or astral travel. So as you do these things, you can astral travel. You can have these sort of like these dreams that are super clear. They're like almost like another world you're existing in, you know? So all these kind of really like interesting things happen to me. And I'm not, I don't, that's not everybody's experience with it, but that was mine.
Mhm.
And that kind of keeps me moving. That keeps me going, like keeps me loyal to that lifestyle, because
Mhm.
man, if I'm having this experience now, and I kind of equate it to also like we have antenna, you know what I'm saying? And when we think, imagine like if you had an antenna on your roof or a dish and you threw all garbage on it, it's not going to pick up the signal. But once
Yeah.
you clear it out, then you can pick up all these signals of like other dimensions, you know, other planes of
Yeah.
existence,
Yeah.
spiritual masters, spiritual entities, whatever you want to call them, you know, whatever your belief system is. We have access to it, but we've lost access to it because we live in a fear-based society, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Now I've heard people that are vegans definitely say that they, you know, they feel like they have more clarity as a vegan.
Food is a fog, man. Food
Yeah.
is a fog. It will clog you up. It'll do all sorts of things. But once you clean it out, the clarity does come.
That's a fact.
Frequency does come. Everything starts to come out once you clear it out.
Yeah, it's a fact. Saga, plug your new project. Tell everybody how they could get in contact with you. Give out all your social medias and everything.
All right, new project is Black Label Saga Volume 1. Volume 2 is coming out August 2nd. All my socials are Saga718 and everything, IG, Facebook. Do people still do Facebook? I don't even know, man. Like,
I'm not on there.
I feel like it's like kind of a dead platform. Twitter, Bandcamp. You can count my stuff on Bandcamp. I'm on all the streaming sites. You know, there's always this sort of argument: is streaming sites even worth it at this point? You know, like Spotify, do we make anything? But at the same time, if you get on playlists, it does get you more attention. So there's pros and cons to everything. So you can find me on Spotify, Apple Music. I'm literally on everything right now. But go to my IG. All my info's in my bio. Hit me up on Bandcamp. Leave a comment, man. That always helps. That always helps to motivate me to make more music, and you know, like people's responses, like, share, all that stuff is super important.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
appreciate you, Saga, man. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on, man.
Wonderful interview.